In this video, we're going to be making a rhinestone design and then exporting that design as an SVG file to then import into the Silhouette Studio software. And we're going to be talking about a topic that's really important for you to know as it relates to the Silhouette Studio software and the stone sizes that you're going to be cutting for your templates. So what I want to do is I want to actually create a design that requires two different stone sizes for this exercise. So what we're going to do here is just create a little peace sign here. So I'm going to make this about 3 inches initially. So I just drag out a 3-inch circle. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some stones to this. Let's use SS16 stones, I guess. So there are some SS16 stones. And then we're going to break those stones from the path. And then I'm just going to kind of scale this in a little bit. And I think I'll use SS6 stones for this one. All right. And so there is our kind of our start to our design. So let's go ahead and delete our stone paths. And I'm just going to find out where my vertical and horizontal centers are. And so now you can see here I have a stone right there at the center, and then down here I don't, which is fine. I'm just going to pull this stone straight down, something like so, and then I'm going to take these two stones and hit AS, and that will just fill in between there. Let's go ahead and delete those stone paths, and then let's go ahead and finish up our peace sign here. We'll go from here to here and hit AS, and we'll delete our stone paths, and then I think I'm just going to flip this over like so. Okay. Now, always when you're finishing up a design, you always want to check your spacing. And you can see there, if we go into wireframe mode, you can see what this all looks like now. So that is our finished design. And I'll tell you what, just for fun, let's come in here and let's do something a little bit different. Let's just take some of these stones and let's make them yellow. And then we'll take some of the stones and we'll make them green. And then we'll take some of the stones and we'll make those light cyan. And then we'll just kind of fill this in with light cyan. And then these will be green. And then up here, we will make those citrine. All right. So then we have something like this. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and export the design. Now, typically when we export a design, we'll add a weed box. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's just make it a different color. Let's make it pink. There we go. So now let's go ahead and export this design out. So we'll go over here to the miscellaneous tab and choose export vector file. Now for this example, I think what I'm going to do is just export everything out as one file. So I'm just going to select all the different colors, and then we'll go ahead and choose the complete option, and we'll call it sample piece. And now the file has been exported, and now we're going to take a look at the other process, which is bringing it into Silhouette Studio. In order to import a design into Silhouette Studio, you do need the upgraded Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. And typically what I'll do is I'll just drag and drop from my desktop right into the Silhouette Studio software. So on my desktop, I exported that sample piece SVG file, and I'm just going to drag and drop that right here into my Silhouette Studio workspace. Now, the first thing you want to do is when you import a design like this, it's going to come in grouped. So we're going to right click and choose ungroup. And sometimes we have to right click a couple of times. You can see here, as long as that's still lit up, that means it's still grouped. So we'll hit ungroup again. And now I can already see, if you look here, there's a little box around every single stone. So what that tells me is that it's been completely ungrouped. Now I'll go ahead and delete my weed box for this example. And let's just zoom in here and kind of look at what we're going to do here. Now, these circles that we have created are created at a size that we use. But the circles that Silhouette Studio has set up for you, you can actually change the diameter of this circle. And by taking this extra step, if you will, with every design that you bring into Silhouette Studio, you're going to have some unique capability that you otherwise wouldn't. So let me just explain what we're talking about here. So we're going to go over to the Rhinestone tab, and you can see it's built into Silhouette Studio. You have 6, 10, 16s, and 20s. All right. And that's going to catch probably 95% of all the designs that you're going to work with. It's going to be one of those stone sizes. Well, in this design, we use SS16 for the perimeter. Now, unfortunately, Silhouette Studio doesn't give us a way to select just the black stones. It doesn't have a select by color or select by size feature. But so I'm just going to come in here and make a selection. You can see some of these stones that I have selected. And I'm going to set those to SS16 and hit radio. And do you see how those stones are slightly smaller now? So if you ever notice when you import a SVG design, whether it's ours or someone else's, if you ever notice that the hole size, if you just cut it as is, it's a little bit bigger than what you really want. And that's just because of the conversion process from CorelDRAW to the SVG format. The actual circle size that we set in CorelDRAW, it's a little bit either undersized or oversized. The SVG export from CorelDRAW is not the best. So by coming in here and making these selections, we can change. You can see here, we're just going to change these. And we just have to kind of do a few at a time here. Whatever you can select without selecting the SS6 stones. You don't want to select those right now because we're just setting all these exterior stones to SS16s at the moment. And it's nice because it kind of gives us a visual reference because those stones are so much smaller. So now what we need to do is we need to set all these stones on the inside here. We need to set all those to SS6s. And so we can do that pretty easily. Just switch them over to SS6s. And you see that those two got slightly smaller. So just take a moment to make sure you get them all selected here. Be careful not to select our SS16s. And all right. So there is all of our stones. Oh, there's few more right here that we didn't catch. Well, now that I look at it a little bit closer, there's a couple over there. And over here. All right, so now I think those are all done, but this one right there. So now those are all done. And so one of the nice things that we have is we have our stone count right here in Silhouette Studio. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, it tells us there are 46 SS16 stones, and it looks like there's 95 SS6 stones. But notice the spacing between these stones. Well, if I don't want that much spacing, now because I've assigned these as all rhinestones, silhouette rhinestones, if you will, I can now come in here and scale this, and the circle size will not change. You can see if I scale it too much, they become overlapping. But I can really define the size between the circles. So if I want a little snugger fit, that's one way to go about it. And if I want a little more space between them so my template material doesn't tear easily, well, then you can do that as well. So that is how you can set your circle size. Now what you'll find is that if you use the Silhouette Studio sizes, you'll see that it actually cuts pretty well for most of your Korean and Chinese grade rhinestones. Now, your machine cut rhinestones, you may have to oversize just a little bit, and that you'll have to kind of play with a little bit, because you don't have that option here in Silhouette Studio for different stone sizes if you're using Korean versus machine cut. But at least it gives you an idea. And see, we can make this design bigger. If we go too big, well, then you can see it really starts to skew. But we can make it this much bigger. So right now, the biggest we can make it without skewing, let's just see here. Right there, 84 millimeters. But we can also scale all the way down, probably not much more than that, 70 millimeters. So that's roughly 15 millimeters difference from the smallest to the biggest without adding additional stones. And so that difference is roughly a half inch. So that's a pretty decent span that you can modify and adjust. And the only way you're going to be able to scale this up and down like this, the only way to do that is if you've converted it to actual rhinestones here inside Silhouette Studio. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding of how you can set your stone sizes and make sure everything is perfect before you go to cut your rhinestone design. Thanks for watching.